Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
It's good to be here.
Today we are, we're going to a place that I think most people try to avoid until they absolutely have to be there.
Yeah. It's a topic that nobody is, pinning on their Pinterest board for fun.
Exactly. We are wading into waters that are surprisingly technical, frustratingly mechanical, but also deeply, deeply emotional. We are talking about a quarter of an inch of white space.
It sounds so insignificant when you put it like that.
And he's right, a quarter inch.
Just a tiny little margin.
But this specific quarter inch, it carries a massive weight. We are looking at technology when it meets grief. Specifically, the hidden, silent rage of the DIY funeral program.
Oh, man. I have been there. I think a lot of our listeners, unfortunately, have probably been there, too.
I really want to set the scene because the context is everything here. And I want you, the listener, to just walk with us into this room for a second. Let's say it's 2 in the morning on a Wednesday.
The house is quiet.
Yeah.
Too quiet.
You lost a loved one, a parent, a spouse, a sibling, just a few days ago. The grief is raw. It's that foggy, heavy feeling you can't shake. But you've taken on a task. You said, I'll do the programs.
And it's an act of service, right? It's the last thing you can physically do for them. It feels like a way to get back some control when everything else feels so out of control.
Right. You want it to be perfect. So you're sitting in your laptop, maybe at the kitchen table. You found that photo of them from 10 years ago. They look so happy, so vibrant. You've chosen the fonts. You've designed this beautiful, lush tribute. And on your screen, it looks like a magazine cover. The colors just flow all the way to the edge. It's dignified. It is complete.
You're pouring your memory of them into those pixels. It stops being just a file. It's them.
Exactly. And then you hit print.
The moment of truth.
The printer starts doing that churning, whirring noise. The paper tray rattles a bit. And out comes the sheet. You pick it up, expecting that lush, edge-to-edge magazine look you saw on the screen. But instead,
white border.
The antagonist of our entire episode. That glaring, uninvited, uneven white margin just wrapping around the whole page.
It just screams unfinished, doesn't it?
It does. You didn't design it. You didn't ask for it. And suddenly, this thing that looks so professional, so polished on your screen, looks, well, the word our source material uses is amateur.
Which is the very last thing you want to feel in that moment. You want it to look like it came from a professional press. You want it to be perfect.
And at 2 a.m., alone in your kitchen, that white border isn't just a printing error. It feels like a failure. It feels like you let them down.
And that is the crucial emotional context we have to start with. Because logically, if we were printing, I don't know, a recipe or a map...
Oh, I wouldn't care.
We wouldn't care.
No, I'd just grab a pair of scissors and trim it and move on with my life.
But emotionally, that border represents a huge gap between your intention honoring this person perfectly and the reality of what this machine just spit out. It adds stress to a vessel that is already completely overflowing.
So our mission today is to fix that. We are doing a deep dive into the mechanics of edge-to-edge printing. We're going to demystify why that border appears, the actual physics of why it's so hard to get rid of, and how you, yes, you, the listener, probably holding that very piece of paper right now, can actually master this process at home.
And we are going to debunk a major myth right off the bat.
Please do.
There is this idea that borderless printing is some kind of dark art that only professional print shops can do, or that you need like a $5,000 machine.
I definitely thought that. I was just assumed my little inkjet just wasn't smart enough or something.
It's not about smarts at all. It's about physics. It is possible at home, but, and this is a really but, it requires you to think like an engineer for about 10 minutes. You can't just wish the border away. You have to trick your printer into doing something it is instinctively afraid to do.
Afraid to do. I like that. We're going to be printer therapists today.
Something like that. It's a problem of mechanics versus your expectations.
Okay, so let's get right into the mechanics. Section 1. The physics of the margin. Why is it even there? I think most of us assume a printer works like a stamp, you know. I put the paper in, the print head goes shunk, and the image is on there. Why is the margin the default setting?
Well, to really get the margin, we have to look at how professional printing is totally different from home printing. Because when you see those glossy brochures or magazines that go perfectly to the edge...
Yeah, like a National Geographic or a fancy wedding invite.
They aren't actually printing to the edge of that specific piece of paper.
Wait, what?
They're cheating. Well, it's not cheating, but they're using a completely different process. If a professional shop wants to give you an 8.5 by 11 inch flyer that's full bleed...
Right.
They do not put 8.5 by 11-inch paper into their giant press.
What they put in then?
They put in a giant sheet, maybe 11 by 17 or even bigger, an oversized stock. They print your image somewhere in the middle of it, and they make the image slightly larger than it needs to be.
Okay, I think I'm following.
And then, once all the ink is dry, they take a giant industrial guillotine, a massive blade, and they physically chop the paper down to the right size.
Oh. So they're cutting off the messy bits on the outside.
Precisely. They create that perfect edge by cutting through the ink. That is how you get that crisp, perfect, edge-to-edge look. The ink literally ends where the paper ends because the paper used to be bigger.
That makes so much sense. But my home printer, I'm looking at it right now, it definitely does not have a guillotine inside it.
No, and you would not want it to. That would be a serious safety hazard.
It would be terrifying. Honey, the printer is sharpening its knives again.
Right. So your home printer cannot cut. It can only spray ink. And this brings us to the physics of the margin. Your home printer relies on a system of rollers and grippers to move the paper through the machine.
The feed rollers. I hear them squeaking all the time.
Exactly. It grabs the paper from the tray, pulls it in, moves it under the print head, and pushes it out. Now imagine you're painting a floor.
Okay, I'm with you. Painting a floor.
And you have to hold onto the floor while you paint it.
That doesn't work. I'd get paint all over my hands.
Exactly. Those rollers and grippers, they need something to hold on to. If the printer were to spray wet ink all the way to the absolute edge of the paper while it was holding it, two catastrophic things happen mechanically.
Okay, give me the disaster scenario.
Scenario 1. The grippers get covered in wet ink. Then, as the paper moves out, those inky grippers touch the next piece of paper you try to print.
And you get those little tire tracks, those little ghost marks.
You get ghost tracks on every single page after that. You've ruined the whole batch.
Okay, that's bad. What's worse?
Scenario 2 is much worse. If you spray ink past the edge of the paper, where does that ink go?
Into the machine.
Into the guts of the printer. It sprays onto the platen, onto the electronics, onto these little sponge pads that are deep inside. Over time, that ink buildup turns into a sticky, horrible sludge. It can short out the sensors. It can literally destroy the printer from the inside out.
So the whiteboarder is basically a safety zone. It's the printer saying, hey, I need this little handle to hold the paper, and I really don't want to spray ink into my own lungs.
That is the perfect way to put it. It is a mechanical necessity. The printer creates that unprintable area, usually it's about 3 to 5 millimeters, to protect itself and to make sure it has a firm grip on the page.
Okay, I have a newfound respect for the border now. It's self-preservation.
Yep.
But you just said borderless printing is possible at home. If the grippers need that space, how does the borderless mode on my printer actually work? Is it some kind of magic?
It's a very clever and slightly risky simulation. It's a cheat.
I love a good cheat. How does it work?
When you go into your settings and you check that little box that says borderless printing, you are essentially telling the printer, I give you permission to be messy.
Okay, I'm on board with that.
The printer then changes its behavior. Since it can't cut the paper, it uses software to manipulate your image. It zooms in.
Zooms in.
It takes your image and it enlarges it by about 2 to 4%. It just blows up the picture enough so that the image spills over the theoretical edge of the paper.
So it is intentionally spraying ink off the page.
Yes, but, and this is the clever engineering part, it directs that overspray into very specific hidden channels inside the printer. There are little absorbent pads, they're often called waste ink absorbers or sponges, that are designed to catch this specific overspray.
Wait a minute, so my printer's wearing a diaper.
Ideally, yes, it has an ink diaper. And that's a big reason why borderless printing is so much slower. The printer has to be much more careful about where it sprays that edge ink so it hits the diaper and not the important rollers.
This explains so much, but it also explains why my designs sometimes look off.
Right. Because it's zooming in, you are losing a little bit of your image on the perimeter. It's the enlarge and crop method.
So if I have text right on the edge,
It's gone. It gets chopped right off.
and that's the frustration. You design it perfectly to the edge, and the printer just goes, let me just zoom in a bit for you. And suddenly, in loving memory becomes in loving memory.
Exactly. And there's another trick that home printers use. They restrict this feature. Many printers will just flat out refuse to do borderless printing on certain types of paper.
I have noticed this. I tried to print on just regular copy paper one time, and the borderless option was completely grayed out. I thought my computer was broken.
It wasn't broken, it was protecting you and itself. The printer knows that plain paper acts like a sponge. It absorbs ink really, really fast. If you saturate the edge of plain paper with borderless ink, the paper starts to curl.
It gets all wavy.
It gets wavy, and then the print head, which is moving back and forth really, really fast, just millimeters above the paper, strikes the curled paper. Smack. And you get a giant ink smear, or worse, a paper jam. So the printer just locks you out of the feature unless you tell it you're using photo paper.
So true edge-to-edge accuracy at home is really just a simulation. We're tricking the eye, and we're tricking the machine.
Correct. You are fighting against the machine's natural and very logical desire to keep things clean and tidy.
Okay, so we know the physics now. The printer needs a handle, and we are basically forcing it to let go of the handle or to spray ink all over its own hands. But before we even get to the settings, there is a hard stop, isn't there? This is section 2, the hardware check.
This is the heartbreaker. This is where the dream dies for some people, and honestly, it's better to know it now than at 3 in the morning.
What is the hard stop?
Not every printer can do this. Period. Full stop.
Not even if I update the drivers, even if I just yell at it.
Yelling definitely won't work. The hard truth is that borderless printing requires those specific waste ink pads we talked about, the diapers. If your printer model doesn't have those pads positioned correctly, or if the rollers are placed in a certain way, the manufacturer simply disables the feature in the hardware. It is a physical limitation.
So how do you know? If you are listening to this right now and you're staring at your printer wondering if it's the one, how do you actually verify?
You have to look at the manufacturer specifications. And I don't mean just looking at what's on the box it came in. You need to Google the model number and find the PDF manual.
The manual that everyone throws away immediately.
That's the one. You need to look for a section that's usually called paper handling or media specifications, and you're looking for those magic words, borderless printing.
Okay.
But, and here's where it gets really tricky, and this is where people get trapped, you have to check the supported paper sizes.
Why does the size matter? I mean, if it can do borderless, it can do borderless, right?
Wrong. A lot of consumer printers are sold as photo printers. They will absolutely boast about borderless printing on the box, but if you read the fine print, they only support borderless printing on 4x6 or maybe 5x7 photo paper.
Oh, wow. So just for small snapshots?
Exactly, because they assume you are just printing your vacation photos. But a funeral program is usually what size?
It's usually 8.5 by 11, standard letter size, or maybe legal.
Right. And many, many mid-range printers cannot do borderless on 8.5 by 11. They just don't have the mechanics built for a sheet that wide.
That is such a crucial nuance.
Yeah.
So you could be standing there with a beautiful stack of nice linen paper ready to print your 8.5 by 11 program, and the printer is technically capable of borderless printing, but it just looks at you and says, nope, not on this size, buddy.
Not on the size and not on this paper type. That's the other variable. It might say it supports borderless on 8.5 by 11 glossy photo paper, but as soon as you tell it you are using plain paper or cardstock, it disables the feature.
It's guarding the gates. It doesn't trust you.
It is. It's protecting itself. And the consequence of incompatibility here is that the family has to pivot. If the machine says no, you have to stop fighting it. You cannot hack this. There's no secret code.
You can't force it.
If you try to force a non-borderless printer to print to the edge, I don't know, maybe by taping the paper to a larger sheet or just lying to the settings, you're asking for a jam. And a jam with heavy cardstock and wet ink. That's how you break a printer permanently.
And we do not have time for a broken printer. We have a funeral in 2 days.
Exactly. So if the specs say no, you pivot. You pivot to design adaptation, which we will definitely talk about later. But checking the hardware is step 1. It is the gatekeeper.
Okay, let's assume we checked. We are the lucky ones. Our printer supports borderless 8.5 by 11. Now we need to talk about what we're actually feeding it. Section 3, the chemistry of paper.
Yes, this is my favorite part because people think paper is just paper. But it's not. It's actually technology.
I feel like when people do funeral programs, they want it to feel substantial. They don't want flimsy copy paper. They reach for that heavy cardstock. They want it to feel like a wedding invitation.
It's tactile. The weight of the paper conveys the weight of the occasion. You hand someone a flimsy piece of copier paper, it feels disposable. You hand them a thick, textured card, it feels like a keepsake you should hold on to.
Right, but you're calling this the cardstock trap, so why is that a trap?
Because most home printers hate borderless cardstock with a fiery passion.
Why? Is it just too thick to go through?
It's the stiffness. Think about the mechanics again. The paper has to bend slightly to get through that series of rollers. Thick paper is stiff. It doesn't want to bend.
Okay, yeah.
Now, combine that stiffness with the need for the printer to hold it by the very edge, the very tip, while it's spraying ink off the side. The grippers just can't get a good purchase on stiff paper at the very edge. It slips.
It slips.
The paper can physically slide a millimeter or two while it's being printed.
Oh, that's a disaster.
And because the paper is so thick, the surface of the paper is physically closer to the print head. Remember, the print head is gliding over the paper. If the paper is thick, that gap is much smaller.
So the paper curls up even a tiny little bit.
Scrape, you get ink smearing. And specifically with borderless printing, when the ink pools at the edge, which it always does, it has nowhere to go on cardstock. It just sits on top, wet. As the paper ejects, that wet edge drags across the exit rollers.
And you get that dirty tire track we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. It looks like a mechanic with greasy hands touched your program.
Okay, so expert insight here. If you absolutely must use heavy cardstock, do you just have to accept the border? Is that the trade-off?
Usually, yes. Unless you have a very specific rear feed printer.
Oh, the ones where the paper kind of stands up in the back.
Yes. Gravity helps a lot there.
Yeah.
If you have a printer where the paper goes in a tray at the bottom and then has to do a tight U-turn to come out.
The U-turn, I can visualize that right now. That's got to be hard for cardstock.
It's brutal for cardstock. If you have a bottom-loading tray, just don't even try borderless cardstock. You will jam it. If you have a rear feed, you have a fighting chance.
And while we're on the subject of cardstock, there's another trap that has nothing to do with the printing, but everything to do with the DIY part of this. It's the folding.
Oh, the cracking. Yeah.
I see this all the time. Someone prints a beautiful program on this nice, thick cardstock, and then they just fold it in half, and the spine just looks awful.
It looks ragged, it cracks. And that's because of the grain of the paper. Paper is made of tiny fibers that all align in a certain direction. If you fold against the grain, you are literally breaking those fibers.
So what's the fix for that?
You have to score it first. You can't just fold it with your hands. You need to take a dull knife or a special tool called a bone folder and make a crease before you fold it. This compresses the fibers instead of just snapping them.
That is a pro tip right there. Okay, back to the printing. If cardstock is dangerous and plain paper is too flimsy and curls, what is the Goldilocks solution? What's the paper we should be using?
The secret weapon, matte photo paper.
Matte photo paper. Why is that the magic bullet?
It all comes down to chemistry. We talked about the diaper inside the printer, but now we need to talk about the special coating that's on the paper itself.
Yeah, break it down for me.
Plain paper is just mashed up wood pulp. It's uncoated fibers. It acts like a sponge. If you spray heavy ink on it, the fibers swell up and the paper warps.
Right, the bacon wave effect. It gets all crinkly.
The bacon wave, yes. But photo paper, even the matte kind, has a chemical coating. It's usually a clay or a polymer layer. This layer sits on top of the paper fibers.
Like a shield.
It's a shield that holds the ink. It locks the ink in place almost instantly. It prevents the underlying fibers from swelling up. This allows the printer to lay down a huge amount of ink right at the edge for borderless printing without the paper curling up and hitting the print head.
So the printer is happy to print borderless on it because it knows the paper won't warp and cause a jam.
Exactly. The driver software usually unlocks the borderless setting as soon as you select matte photo paper in the menu. The printer trusts that paper.
But why matte specifically? Why not glossy photo paper?
Have you ever tried to read small text on a glossy piece of paper under the lighting in a funeral home?
Oh, the glare. It's blinding. You can't see anything.
It's terrible. And glossy paper shows every single fingerprint. You hand it to Aunt Martha. She gets emotional. She touches the paper. Now there's a smudge right on the photo. Glossy just feels like a snapshot. It feels like a 4x6 print you got from the drugstore. It doesn't feel like a document.
And matte feels?
Matte feels soft. It feels elegant. It has absolutely no glare. It makes text incredibly sharp because the ink doesn't bleed into the fibers at all. It gives you that professional brochure feel, but with the technical capability of edge-to-edge printing.
That is a huge takeaway. If you are struggling with jams or quality issues, switch to matte photo paper. It might cost a few dollars more per pack, but it sounds like it saves your sanity.
It absolutely saves your sanity. And frankly, it looks so much better than cardstock that has a forced white border on it.
Okay, so we have our hardware checked. We have our matte photo paper ready to go in the rear feed. We are ready to design.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier that the printer zooms in to create the borderless effect, which brings us to section 4. Designing for the bleed. Because if I design my program exactly to 8.5 by 11 and the printer zooms in, aren't I just losing stuff?
You are. And this is where most DIYers fail, understandably. They design to the exact size of the paper.
I mean, that's just logical.
It is completely logical, but it's wrong for this kind of printing. You have to design for the bleed.
Okay, define bleed for us. I hear graphic designers use that word, but what does it mean for me in Microsoft Word or Canva?
Bleed is simply extra design space that extends beyond the final page size. If you want your final program to be 8.5 by 11 inches, you shouldn't set up your canvas in the software as 8.5 by 11.
What should I set it up as?
You should add 1/8 of an inch to every single side. That is the professional standard, 0.125 inches. So mathematically, you want a canvas that is 8.75 by 11.25 inches.
So you make the digital canvas bigger than the paper.
You make the canvas bigger. And this is the most important part. You have to ensure that your background image or your background color fills that entire bigger canvas.
So I'm designing stuff that I know for a fact is going to get chopped off.
Yes. You are intentionally placing image data in the kill zone.
The kill zone, why would I do that?
To compensate for the printer's mechanical inaccuracy. When the printer does that zoom and crop trick we talked about, it needs image data to pull from. If the printer shifts the paper by just a millimeter or it zooms in by 2% instead of 3%, the bleed ensures there is still color there at the edge.
Ah, so if I don't have bleed and the printer shifts just a tiny bit.
You get a sliver of white paper, a razor-thin white line on just one side. It looks like a mistake.
And if I do have bleed?
The printer shifts, but it just prints a little more of the background color you gave it. The edge remains perfect. It looks flawless.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But this brings up the danger zone.
Yeah.
If the printer is cropping things, we have to be really, really careful about where we put the text and the important photos.
This is the safe zone rule. And if you take nothing else away from this entire deep dive, please take this. Keep your text away from the edge.
How far away?
At least 1/4 of an inch, 0.25 inches. I'd say even more to be really safe, maybe 0.3 or even 1/2 an inch.
Why so much?
Because you don't know exactly how much the printer will zoom in. It's an imprecise science at home. Different models do it differently. If you put sunrise 1945 right on the edge, the 19 might get clipped off.
And there is a specific rule mentioned in our source material called the face rule.
Yes. Never, ever, ever place a loved one's face near the border in a borderless print.
Oh, wow. I can visualize exactly why.
Imagine the emotional impact. You print the program, and because of the borderless expansion, the top of their head is chopped off, or their ear is clipped.
It looks careless. It looks awful.
It looks violent almost. It completely destroys the dignity of the image. You want their face fully contained within that safe zone.
So background tellers.
Bleed them off the edge, let them go wild.
Things like flowers or abstract design.
Let them bleed right off the page.
But faces and text.
Keep them safe. Deep inside that buffer zone, you need that buffer, so the design still looks intentional even if the printer eats a millimeter or 2 of the page.
Okay, so we have our canvas set up properly, we have the right paper, we've checked our printer specs, and now we have to actually tell the computer to do it. And this is where I think that invisible wall comes in.
The driver settings. This is step 5.
I feel like this is where I always mess up. I just hit print in whatever app I'm in, and I just assume the printer knows what to do.
That is the fatal error. There is a conversation that happens between your computer and your printer, and often they're speaking completely different languages unless you intervene and act as the translator.
Okay, talk to me about the system dialog.
So your internet, let's say it's a web browser or a specific design tool. You hit print, you get a nice simplified little window with a big print button.
Yeah, the easy one, the pretty one.
That easy window is often lying to you. It doesn't have all the controls you need. You need to look for a link, it's usually in blue text at the bottom, that says something like print using system dialog or printer properties or preferences.
You have to dig for it.
You have to leave the pretty app window and open the ugly, gray, complex-looking driver window. That is where the real controls are.
And what are the critical checkboxes we are looking for in that ugly window?
First, paper type. You must match it to what you bought. If you bought matte photo paper, you have to select matte photo paper. Do not leave it on the default plain paper.
Because that tells the printer how much ink to spray and how to handle the paper.
Correct. It also tells the rollers how to behave. Second, and this is the big one, the mode. You must physically check the box that says borderless or edge to edge. It is not on by default ever.
And if you don't check that box,
the printer defaults to safety mode. It creates the white border.
Yep.
It doesn't matter how you design the file. The printer will override you.
Okay. And the third one? Scaling.
This one is the silent killer.
The fit-to-page option. It sounds so helpful. It sounds like it's trying to do you a favor.
It sounds like a friend. Fit to page. But think about what it's actually doing. If you have a file that is 8.5 by 11 and you tell the printer to fit it to the printable area...
The printable area is smaller because of the default safety margins.
Exactly. So it takes your beautiful design and shrinks it down so that the whole thing fits inside the safety margins.
So it actually guarantees a white border.
It guarantees you will get a white border. It does the exact opposite of what you want. You want to select actual size or scale. 100%.
That is so counterintuitive.
It is. You have to trust that your bleed setup is correct. You have to tell the printer, do not shrink this. Print it at 100% size.
This is really about mastering the machine, isn't it? Taking control away from the default.
It is. You are taking off the training wheels and telling the printer you know what you're doing.
Okay, one more advanced thing I saw in the notes. Expansion settings. What is that?
Ugh, for the brave souls. Some printer drivers, usually the more advanced ones, actually allow you to control how much the image is enlarged for borderless printing. It might be a slider bar that says amount of extension.
Oh, interesting. So I can actually dial in the zoom.
Yes. If you find that the printer is cropping way too much of your design, cutting off too much of that bleed, you can turn this setting down. You can tell it, hey, only expand a little bit. It reduces the unwanted cropping. But if you turn it down too much, you risk getting that tiny sliver of white on the edge. It's a balancing act.
It really is an art form. Okay, we have our settings. We're ready to go. Now, step 6, the execution. We're ready to print the whole batch of 100 programs.
The shop, do not print the batch.
I knew you were going to say that.
The mandatory test page. This is completely non-negotiable.
Why is this so vital?
To save your emotional energy. Imagine printing 50 copies, using up an entire cartridge of expensive ink and a whole pack of that nice paper, only to realize that the bottom date is completely cut off.
That would be devastating.
Yeah.
Absolutely devastating.
It is soul-crushing. You need to print one single sheet, and you need to scrutinize it. Get it under a good light. Look for any unexpected borders. Did the settings actually stick? Look for cropped text. Is the color accurate?
And check for smearing, right?
Yes. Once it's dry, run your finger lightly over the edge. Is the ink pooling up? Is the paper soggy at the edges? This one test page tells you the truth about all your settings.
Speaking of soggy paper, let's talk about the pitfalls. Because even if that test page looks good, things can still go wrong when you're printing the big batch.
The biggest pitfall is what I call the printer override. Sometimes you'll print one copy and it looks great. Then you go to print the next 50, and the printer software reverts back to the default settings without telling you.
No way. It just forgets.
It forgets. Or the software resets itself. You need to check those settings in the ugly gray window before every single batch command you send. It sounds paranoid, but it's necessary.
What about drying time?
Yeah.
We called it the pizza wheels earlier. That's a great name for it.
It's a huge issue with Borderless. Because you are putting so much ink right to the very edge, the paper is much wetter than usual. If you print them too fast and they stack up in the output tray, the wet edge of page 2 will touch the face of page 1.
And you get ink transfer, smudges.
You get smudges, you get pages sticking together, and the little eject rollers, the pizza wheels, can track through that wet ink and leave little lines all over the next page.
So what's the fix for that?
Slow down. The recommendation is to print in small batches. Print 5, wait a few minutes, print another 5. Or, if you can, literally pick up each page as it comes out and lay it out on a table to dry separately.
That takes time, though.
It does.
Oh.
But again, we are aiming for quality over speed here. Inconsistency is another issue. As the printer heats up or as your ink levels start to drop, the borderless alignment might shift just slightly. Page 1 might be perfect. Page 50 might have a thin white line on the left side.
So don't just walk away and go make coffee. You have to babysit the machine.
You have to monitor the quality control yourself.
You know, listening to all of this, the physics, the special paper, the bleed, the safe zones, the drying time, it sounds exhausting. It sounds like a lot of work for a family that's already grieving.
It is. And this brings us to section 7, the philosophical pivot. We have to stop and ask the question, is borderless actually better?
Right. Is it worth the fight? Is it worth all this stress?
We need to reevaluate the goal. We're chasing this edge-to-edge look because we think it looks professional. But the irony is many, many professional designs include borders. on purpose.
They do.
Absolutely. Look at a high-end wedding invitation or a classic book layout. Margins create focus. They create breathing room. White space is elegant. It's a design choice.
So this is the intentional border strategy.
Exactly. Instead of fighting the machine to get rid of the border, why not design for the constraint? Work with the printer, not against it.
How do you do that? How do you make a border look like a choice and not like a mistake?
Symmetry helps a lot. If you have an even white border all the way around, it looks like a frame, it looks deliberate. You can also use soft borders, where the background image fades into white before it ever hits the edge of the page.
Oh, like a vignette effect.
Yes, exactly. Or use light background frames. A thin gold line printed a 1/4 inch inside the white margin makes that white margin look like it's a matting for a photo.
That's really smart. It's visual trickery, really.
It's a psychological shift. A program with a clean, even white border looks intentional. A program that's attempting borderless but fails, where the ink stops randomly or it smears at the edge, that looks accidental.
Intentionality is the key word there. It's about being in control of the final product.
And grace. Designing for grace means accepting the tools you have. If you have a basic inkjet printer, design a beautiful, centered, clean layout that embraces the white page. I guarantee it will look far better than a failed attempt at a full bleed magazine spread.
This transitions us perfectly into the emotional dimension of this whole DIY process. Because as we said right at the start, this isn't just a technical troubleshooting session. This is technology meeting grief.
And it is highly volatile. We have to acknowledge why these tech failures hurt so much more in this context. If you're printing a recipe and the paper jams, you get annoyed. You crumple it up. If you are printing your father's obituary and the paper jams, you break down.
Because it feels like you are failing him, not just failing a task.
Yes. The creator, the family member, feels they're failing the loved one. I can't even get this right for him. That is the internal monologue that starts playing.
That is just heartbreaking.
So the role of self-compassion is huge here. You have to understand. These are mechanical limitations. The printer jamming is not a reflection of your love. The white border is not a measure of your grief. It is just a little roller that needs a grip. That's all it is.
You get to separate the machine from the memory.
Yes. And consider the hybrid approach. Our source material mentions the funeral program site as a resource. There are places that offer templates that are specifically designed for home printers.
So they have the margins and the safe zones already built in.
Right. They are designed by professionals who understand the physics we just spent all this time discussing. They know where the safe zones are. Using a template like that can offload the technical burden. You can then focus on the words and the photos and let the template handle the margins.
And there is absolutely no shame in taking the design to a professional if the home burden just becomes too heavy.
None at all. Sometimes the best way to honor your own mental health during a time of grief is to hand the USB drive to someone at a print shop and just say, please help me with this.
Ultimately, what is the value of the program? Is it really the ink reaching the absolute edge of the paper?
No. The ultimate value comes from love, intention, and remembrance. A funeral program is a keepsake because of whose face is on it and what words are inside it, not because of the paper specifications.
So we need to prioritize a finished and dignified look over chasing technical perfection.
Exactly. A clean, bordered program that is readable and smudge-free is infinitely better than a borderless one that is wet and crooked and stressful.
Well, this has been quite a journey. We started with the frustration of that little white line. We went deep into the mechanics of printer rollers and the chemistry of paper, and we ended up talking about self-compassion.
It's a microcosm of grief, isn't it? You try to control the uncontrollable, you hit these hard limits, and eventually you have to find a way to work within them with grace.
So let's recap this deep dive. Our mission was to demystify edge-to-edge printing.
We learned that home printers don't cut paper, they grip it. We learned that Borderless is just a simulation that involves zooming and cropping. And we learned to check our hardware specs and the danger of that cardstock trap.
We learned about the importance of matte photo paper as a secret weapon.
And we learned the critical design rules. Use bleed, always respect the safe zone, and for goodness sake, never crop the face.
And finally, check those driver settings every single time. 100% scale. Borderless mode on.
But I think the real key takeaway is that knowledge allows for choice. You aren't a victim of the printer anymore. You can choose to set up the perfect borderless environment with the right paper and settings, or you can choose a design that embraces the margin beautifully. Both are valid. Both can be beautiful.
It's the transition from mystery to a managed process.
And that empowers you, the listener, to create a lasting tribute that stands as a testament to love, not just a product of a machine.
I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We spend so much time trying to make these DIY projects look like they came from a factory, perfect, sleek, untouched by human hands. But think about this. If the purpose of the program is to capture the essence of a life, maybe the imperfections of a handmade, home-printed tribute add a layer of intimacy that a perfect professional print can never actually match.
That's a beautiful thought.
Does the effort itself, the struggle with the settings, the careful folding, the personal time you spent with the paper, does that effort become part of the memorial? Is the labor the love?
I think it is.
Something to think about next time you see that white border. Thank you for diving deep with us today.
Thank you.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive. Take care.